Hey, welcome. We live in a world where it feels like the loudest person in the room always wins, right? Well, today, we're going to flip that on its head. We're going to talk about a totally counterintuitive idea, the power of being quiet. And it all starts with something you probably heard as a kid.
Yeah, I'm sure you remember that one. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? The more the owl saw, the less it spoke. The less it spoke, the more it heard. Simple. But here's the thing. If it's that simple, why is it so incredibly hard for us to actually be like that wise old bird?
So to really get a handle on this whole power of quiet thing, we're going to look somewhere you might not expect, the world of master photography. There's a secret technique in there that has absolutely nothing to do with running around chasing the action. In fact, it's all about patience.
Okay, so this incredible piece of advice comes from a National Geographic photographer named Sam Abell. He figured out really early in his career that chasing a moving subject, well, it just doesn't work. Instead, he took his dad's advice, which was to compose and wait. Picture this. You meticulously frame the static background, the beautiful plaza, the wide open grassland, and then you just wait. You wait for that dynamic piece, maybe a person walking by or a bison just ambling into view, to step right into the perfect frame you've already built.
And that right there, that's a perfect metaphor for our big idea today. You just can't force a breakthrough insight. You can't run after it and tackle it. What you can do is create the right conditions for it to show up. And, one of the most critical and honestly most overlooked conditions is just being quiet.
But here's the challenge, right? Our default setting is almost always the exact opposite of quiet. So many of us, especially if you're in a leadership role, get totally stuck in what you could call broadcast mode. It's this transmission trap. And the crazy thing is, even our best intentions, our highest energy, can end up being a huge problem.
Think about it. We often think our job is to proclaim, to direct, to tell. And hey, it feels productive. It feels like we're doing something. But when you're stuck in transmit mode, you're actually shutting down the pipeline of crucial information. You're so busy sending your signal out that there's no way you can pick up any signal coming in. We're all broadcasters, and we've completely forgotten how to be receivers.
Here's a perfect everyday example. Picture a family on vacation in Jamaica. One of the brothers gets this great idea. Let's have a bonfire tonight. He's so excited, so passionate about it, that nobody wants to burst his bubble. But deep down, they're all thinking the exact same thing. Isn't it like 85 degrees and super windy? For a fire? See, his enthusiasm, his transmission, was just so powerful that it completely shut down their feedback. And the key takeaway here is that the plan failed, not because a bonfire is a bad idea, but because nobody felt they could speak up and question it.
Okay, so if transmitting is the trap, then receiving has to be the key, right? But this means we've got to totally redefine what we mean when we say quiet. This isn't about being passive or checked out or disengaged. No. It's actually the complete opposite.
There's this fantastic story about Steve Jobs that illustrates this perfectly. He's in an elevator at Pixar with a young animator. And in that short ride, Jobs doesn't say a word about himself. Instead, he just becomes intensely curious. He starts peppering the animator with questions about his music, what he listens to, how he listens. He was totally clicked in. That's not empty space. That is active, engaged, incredibly powerful listening.
Or how about this? Mark Benioff, the co-founder of Salesforce, was once asked for his #1 piece of advice on finding a breakthrough idea. You know what he said? One word. Listen. And then he just stood there in complete silence, just waiting. That kind of silence is powerful. It makes you lean in. It forces you to pay attention, to really hear what's coming next. Okay, so we get it. We need to listen more. But the big question is, how? How do we actually do that? Well, let's get practical. Let's dig into a toolkit we can all use to make that shift from transmitting to receiving.
All right, so here are 5 really powerful practices. The big ideas here are all about pausing so other people can actually talk, really digging for that one nugget of value, even if an idea sounds kind of messy at first, and just generally making yourself more approachable. Now, each one of these is a whole skill, but let's zoom in on a couple that are real game changers. So there's this high-stakes mediator, Tony Piazza, and he has this incredible idea called minimizing separation. He says that the moment we start listening just to categorize the problem or to find the right tool in our toolkit to fix it, we're actually creating distance between us and the other person. To truly listen, he says, you have to let all that go. Let go of your analysis and just be fully present with them. That's where the magic happens.
And this really brings it all down to one critical question you have to ask yourself. Are you listening to win, or are you listening to understand? Think about it. So often we're just listening for our turn to talk, to form our rebuttal, right? We're listening to defend our turf and win the argument. But what if we completely shifted that goal? What would happen if we started listening just to understand what the other person is really truly trying to say?
All right, let's zoom out a little bit. Because being quiet, really listening, it isn't just about conversations with other people. It's also about listening to the world around you, tuning in to the signals that don't actually have a voice.
The great Clay Christensen had a name for this. He called it passive data. And what is that? It's the raw, unfiltered context of real life. It's not going to be in a neat report or a PowerPoint slide. It's the subtle frustration you see on a customer's face, or the weird way a technology is being used in a completely different field. This stuff is everywhere, but it's not loud. It doesn't scream for your attention. You have to go out and actively look for it.
You know, there's this beautiful quote from Peter Drucker that just nails this idea. He said, "Innovative opportunities do not come with the tempest, but with the rustling of the breeze." We always expect innovation to show up like this big, loud thunderstorm, right? All drama and noise. But more often than not, it's subtle. It's just the rustling of the breeze. And the real question is, are we quiet enough to even hear it?
So let's wrap this all up. The biggest breakthroughs, those game-changing creative solutions, the insights that can literally change everything, they don't show up with a big crash of thunder.
Nope. They come quietly. They're subtle. They're hidden in the pauses in a conversation, in those unspoken frustrations, and all that passive data that's just floating around us all the time.
And that brings us full circle, right back to our photographer, Sam Abel. The job of an innovator, a leader, anyone trying to think creatively isn't to chase down the insight, it's to create the right conditions, to set up that perfect background of quiet, attentive reception. You just compose the frame, and then you wait for that flash of brilliance to walk right into it.
So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. In your work, in your life, and how you lead, what are you not hearing? What little rustling of the breeze are you missing because you're too busy making your own tempest? Thanks for tuning in.